Hey friends, welcome to Kind Body Basics. Today we are going to be talking about lower body alignment, and I'm going to be giving you some cues for standing that are really great to practice while you're standing in line, whether that's standing in line trying to get to Trader Joe's or standing in line at the checkout or whatever it might be. You don't have to be standing in line. Maybe you're standing washing the dishes in the kitchen. Whatever it is, these are some good everyday alignment cues. Now, I wore my bike shorts so I could show you these nice markings that I've made on my legs. You do not have to draw on yourself if you don't want to, but it can be kind of a fun exercise. So before we get started, I do want to say that you will need a yoga strap. This one's pretty long. You don't need one that's this long. And if you don't have a yoga strap, you can use a belt or a scarf. If you are using a belt or a scarf, for part of the class, you are going to want to make sure that there's something heavy at the end, because we're going to drop a plumb line. So if you're using a string or a scarf, you can tie a pencil to the end of it. If you're using a regular belt that you would wear around your waist, you can have the buckle part pointing down towards the ground. That's probably going to be heavy enough. So the first line that we're going to start with on my legs is the line on my feet. So if you look down at my feet, I have drawn a line from the center of the front of my ankle to the base of my second toe. Now, you've probably heard me say, stand with your feet parallel. And if you haven't heard me say, stand with your feet parallel, you've probably heard somebody else say it in some sort of exercise class at some point in time. So what does parallel mean? What line are we using to determine parallel? So this is the line. It's the line from the center of your ankle to the base of your second toe. So I've drawn that line in a marker. It's my best approximation with a shaky hand. So I am going to choose to stand with my feet parallel so that that line is parallel on each foot. Some people have a tendency to stand with their toes out wider than their heels. And if that's you, standing with your feet in this parallel position might make you feel a little pigeon-toed. Don't worry, you're not pigeon-toed. Your brain's just not used to it. Your brain has figured out that, oh, when my toes point out to the sides, that's straight ahead. Your brain is thinking that. So you're gonna have to do a little rewiring here. So feet parallel, and then after we talk about feet parallel, we need to talk about how wide to step the feet apart. So this is where I'm going to grab my strap, and I'm going to find my ASIS, which is my bony hip point, okay, at the front, and I'm going to secure the strap to my ASIS. I'm just going to hold it there with my finger, and I'm going to let it fall, okay? And so let me shore it up a little bit. I want it to fall on a straight line, and I want that parallel line on my foot to be right underneath the strap, to be right underneath that plumb line. And that's going to tell me that my feet are under my pelvis, or my feet are pelvis width apart. So I'm going to go over to the other side and do that as well. This is a nice exercise to do in front of a mirror too, if you have a full length mirror, because then you can really see what's going on. So again, you're gonna find your bony hip point, ASIS, anterior superior iliac spine, and you're gonna let your strap fall straight down, and you want that parallel line to be right there under the plumb line. So now I know that my feet are parallel and pelvis width apart. So that's step 1 and 2. Now I'm going to turn sideways so that we can explore the next part of this, and that is pelvic position. So it is very normal for people to stand with their pelvis shifted forward, especially if your name's Matthew McConaughey. But so when you stand with your pelvis forward, some of the muscles in your legs are being forced to work a little bit too much, and some of the other muscles in your legs are not getting to work. And so the way that we can tone our buns just by standing, kind of, is to make sure that our pelvis is in a good position. So here's how we're going to do that. The bony landmark that we're going to start off with is the hip joint. So this is where your thigh bone, your femur bone, inserts into your pelvis. Okay, so mine's right here. And again, I'm going to attach the strap right there to that hip joint. And now, I need to lift it up a little bit. You want your plumb line to hit right at your ankle, okay? But if your pelvis is too far forward, if you've shifted your pelvis forward, you see that plumb line is going to go in front of your ankle joint. Same thing if you are standing with your hips really far back, kind of almost with a bend in your hips. So we want to try to get the pelvis right over the ankles. Okay, so we've got feet parallel, feet pelvis width apart, pelvis over the ankles. Another point of alignment that you can consider, and I'm going to turn back to face you here, is if you imagine fitting your pelvis in between two panes of glass. So is it possible that you're standing with one hip more forward than the other hip? It is possible. So one thing that you can always do is to back up against the wall. And depending on the size of your soft tissue or the bulk of your soft tissue, that lovable soft tissue, when you stand with your backside against the wall, your pelvis might not be over your ankles. So you're going to have to remove that alignment point from your brain for this particular moment, but standing with your back against the wall can be a really great way to tell if you have one hip kind of shifted forward from the other hip, okay? So you can kind of play around with that and see about that. And then another way that your hips could be shifted a little out of neutral is that you could quite possibly have one hip that's a little higher than the other. And so that's something to pay attention to. You can find your ASIS, the bony hip points at the front, and this is again where a mirror can be really helpful. And if you put one hand on each ASIS and look in the mirror, is one of your hands a little higher than the other? And if so, can you shift your weight around? Can you see about making your hips level? And they might go level and they might not. Some people have one leg that's longer than the other. And in that case, you would not be able to get your hips level unless you had a lift under one foot. But that's kind of a little out of or beyond the scope of this video. So we've talked about feet parallel and pelvis width apart. We've talked about pelvis over the heels. That's where we had the plumb line down from the hip joint down to the ankle. We've talked about pelvis in a line front to back, so one hip isn't forward of the other. And we've talked about the pelvis being level this way so that one hip isn't higher than the other. Now, with your feet parallel, go ahead and look down at your knees. Which direction are your knees pointing? Okay, my knees are kind of pointing in, and there's maybe a good chance that your knees are pointing in as well. Sometimes the kneecap, though, can be deceiving. our kneecaps move and float. And so an easier way to really tell where your legs are in space is to look at your knee pits. And I'm going to show you that in just a second, because the importance of this is that your knee joint can tell us where your thigh bone is and how your thigh bone is potentially rotated. So I'm going to turn around to show you. I've drawn these 11s on my knee pits. So these are really just tendon lines, but it's a really great indicator of where your thigh bone is. So the mark that we want to aim for is for those knee pit lines, those 11s, to be pointing straight back behind us. So, but if I put my feet in a parallel position, my knee pits, my 11s, point out to the sides. And that is showing that my thigh bone is rotated internally. Now, I want those 11s to point straight back behind me. So what I need to do is externally rotate my thighs. So you can go ahead and try that. Try externally rotating your thighs. Now, when I externally rotate my thighs, I cannot keep my feet flat on the ground anymore. And you're gonna be like, Jen, are you telling me this is how I need to stand all the time? No, we'll get there in a minute, okay? We're layering alignment points on top of each other. And this is why this video is just lower body alignment. So in order to have my thigh bones in this a little bit more externally rotated position, so it's not total external rotation, okay? Because that would be like a ballet dancer. I would like to think of this as you're externally rotating to a more neutral place, okay? So I have to lift my feet, lift the inner edges of my feet to get there. So you can play around with that. And again, this is where a mirror can come in handy. You can also reach back and feel where your knee pits are. And as you bend your knees a little bit, you can feel the knee pits protrude, or I'm sorry, those tendon lines protrude a little bit more, so it can be easier to feel. Okay, so let's back it up for a moment and talk a little bit more about what's going on at the knee joint and what this little X is on my shin. So let's sit down. You can sit in a chair or you can sit on the ground. It's your choice. So I've put a little X at the very top of my shin bone, my tibia. Now, did you know that your knee does not just open and close? It rotates too. Yeah. So this is called a shank rotation or a shin rotation, whatever you want to call it, tibial rotation. And so this is a really great exercise for when your knees get cranky. It's a part of us that we may not be aware of that moves, but it does. And it can play a big difference in helping us with that standing alignment that we were just talking about, as well as it can help you with squatting down to pick something up. So you're gonna hold your knee and your thigh in between this vise of your hands, okay? Because we don't want the thigh to move at all. It's just gonna be the lower leg that's gonna move. And I'm gonna pop my heel up away from the ground so that my foot's a little bit more mobile and can go with my tibia, can go with my shin bone. So if you don't, oh, my fingers are turning blue. If you don't want to draw on yourself, it might be helpful to just put a sticker on the top of your shin bone, on the top of your tibia, right where this blue X is. And so you can start out by using your ankle to drive this motion, just to help you kind of tune in and see what's going on and what's possible. So to do that, you're just gonna windshield wiper your foot from side to side. And as you do that, see how your tibia moves. I don't know if you can see from there, but the X is moving back and forth. Isn't that cool? Did you know you moved that way? So for a while, you're going to have to probably drive the movement with your awareness of your ankle movement, okay? But it's separate from your ankle movement, and eventually you can gain control over just that particular area. So you can see now, I'm moving my ankle and my foot less and really concentrating the movement at my shin. And I'm starting to feel some fatigue in the muscles here. So this is a good one to add. Let's try the other side. Again, you can do this sitting in a chair. You don't have to sit on the ground. You just want to make sure that you are not moving your whole leg, okay? So I'm going to hold my knee and my thigh bone steady. I'm going to lift my foot up so that just my heel is on the ground. And I'm going to start by really wagging my ankle, really wagging my foot. And this is going to just help me to become aware of this tibial rotation, this shin rotation. And then when I can see it and feel it, I can then dial back the movement of my foot and my ankle and really try to make the impetus of the movement come from my shin and this shank area of my foot, of my lower leg. And when I do that, my foot doesn't move quite as much. And it takes a lot of brain power. If your brain feels tired after doing this exercise, that's good. Okay. And again, it's great to kind of go here until you feel the muscles of your shin starting to fatigue and get tired. So again, you can see the X traveling. You can put a sticker there if you don't want to draw on yourself. Okay, so now let's go ahead, now that we've exercised our shins, we're gonna go ahead and lie down on our backs, and we're gonna dig a little deeper into this concept of the neutral knee pit. Okay, so I have a blanket so that I can put under my head. If you want a blanket or a pillow under your head, please feel free to do that. You do need your strap. So lie down on your back, get cozy, and then go ahead and lift your right leg up in the air. Okay, so you can keep your left knee bent, or you can straighten your left leg, whatever feels more comfortable, easier. And so from here, let's start by isolating thigh bone rotation. Okay, so you can internally rotate your thigh, which is going to probably point your toes over to the left or towards your left shoulder. And then you can externally rotate, which is going to point your toes over to your right. So just internally rotate and externally rotate. Now, if your hamstrings are a little tighter and don't want to lift up this high, you might be here, and that's okay. Okay. If you start to get tired or fatigued by holding your leg up in the air, come back and sit up in a chair and do this internally, externally rotating of your thigh bone. Okay, so now go ahead and look again at your foot. And if you have that line drawn from the center of the ankle to the base of the second toe, you can look at that and kind of set it up so it's in that parallel position. And then from here, go ahead and externally rotate your leg, your thigh. So that's going to take your foot out of that parallel position. And just see that. Okay, I just want you to see that. Okay, and then if you internally rotate, again, that's taking your foot out of that parallel position. If you internally rotate your thigh, it's taking your foot out of that parallel position. So keep your foot in the parallel position now, and you're gonna use your strap so you're gonna pull down on your right hand, the right side of your strap, and it's gonna pull the pinky toe side of your foot towards the ground more. Then you can pull down on the left side of your strap, and it's gonna pull the big toe side of your foot down towards the ground a little bit more. And you can kind of floss your foot a little bit from side to side. Okay, so this is one way that we can move. Okay, now go ahead and pull down on the left side of your strap so that the pinky toe side of your foot is pointing towards the ceiling. So there's a longer line on the outer right side of your ankle here, and the inner left side of your ankle is a little bit smushed. Okay, smushed is the technical term. Now that you're here, press the ball of your foot into the strap and relax. Okay, so as you press the ball of your foot into the strap, it's gonna make the sole of your foot kind of more flush towards the ceiling. Okay, so you relax, and then you point the ball of your foot, push it up into the strap. Okay. So if you push the ball, so again, let's break it down. Pull down through the left side of the strap so the pinky toe side of your foot is pointing up towards the ceiling. And then you push the ball of your foot up into the strap. Okay, you've created an arch in your foot. Okay, if you kind of look over, you can see that you have a lifted arch here. Now, let's go ahead and relax the foot and find that neutral knee pit. Okay, so you're going to have to bring your thigh a little externally rotated in order to find that neutral knee pit. So that number 11 is pointing straight away from your head. It's not angled out to either side. And as you've done that, that's taken your foot a little bit out of parallel, and it's made the sole of your foot not flush with the ceiling, right? So you can pull down with the left side of your strap, and that's going to help get your toes down towards your shins a little bit more. And then go ahead and push the ball of your foot up into the strap. Okay, so this action in the foot, this pushing through the ball of the foot, is how we keep our feet down and our knee pits neutral in a standing position. Okay, let's switch and try it on the other leg. So put your right foot down and take your left leg up. Put the strap around your left foot. Now, if your hands are getting tired of holding onto the strap, you can go ahead and like wrap around so that you can relax your grip a little bit. Start out with some internal and external rotation of the thigh. Okay, so just discovering that this is a part of you that can move on its own. Just like we discovered that the shin is a part of us that can move on its own. Our bodies are so cool. Okay, so we've discovered that the thigh bone can internally rotate and externally rotate. Now come to the foot, and you're gonna use your right hand, pull the right side of the strap down, and that's gonna point the pinky toe side of the foot up towards the ceiling. And then do the opposite. Pull down with your left hand so that the big toe side of the foot moves up towards the ceiling. And you can kind of floss back and forth there to see what that feels like. Okay, It does help if the strap is up at the ball of your foot instead of at the arch. Okay, probably should have said that first. So now go ahead and pull down with your right hand on the right side of the strap so that the pinky toe side of your foot is pointing towards the ceiling. And here's where we're going to press the big toe up into the strap. Okay, so here's the thing. If we put a marble on the sole of the foot, and we pull the right strap hand down, and the pinky toe side of the foot goes up, what's going to happen to the marble? It's going to roll down and splat onto our tummies and make a lot of noise as it rolls away. So imagine, though, that you haven't yet dropped the marble. Imagine that something is keeping it there so that it's not going to fall. You do have the pinky toe side of your foot pointing up towards the ceiling. And then if you push the ball of your foot into the strap, you are creating a nice little bowl with the arch of your foot for that marble to rest in. And hopefully that marble won't fall off, okay? So you can drop the marble and you can cradle the marble by pushing the ball of the foot up into the strap, okay? So now let's add the knee pits in. So if you need to touch and feel where those plucky tendons are on the back of your knee, and you want to make sure that those are angling straight ahead, okay? So when I do that, my foot points out to the side, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and pull down on the right side of the strap, and that's gonna put my foot back in that parallel position. But remember, if I was standing up on the ground, my whole foot would not be making contact with the ground. So I'm gonna do that movement of cradling the marble in the arch of my foot. I'm gonna push the ball of my foot up into the strap, and this is how I can keep the sole of my foot on the ground while still maintaining the neutral knee pits. So as you can see, you're creating this arch in your foot. So there is this huge connection between your arch and your hip. Whoa. So go ahead and take your foot out of your strap, and let's go ahead and roll over and sit up or rock up, whatever you want to do. And let's come to stand, and let's put this all together. I'm going to keep my strap with me so I have that plumb line. This will be a review. So you're going to find your parallel line on your feet, center of the ankle to the base of the second toe. You're going to make that line on each foot parallel. Then you're going to find your ASIS on the front of your hip, and you can attach your strap there, and you want the plumb line to hit right at the center of the ankle, okay? And you're going to do that on both sides to ensure that your feet are pelvis width apart, okay? You're also checking in to note if one hip is forward of the other or if one hip is higher than the other. You're also going to use the strap at your hip joint on your outer leg, and you'll put the strap there right at the hip joint. If I can find it, there it is. And you want the plumb line to hit right at the center of your ankle. Okay, there we go. So those are your first alignment points, your foundational alignment points. Once you have that, you can go ahead and put your strap down. Then we're going to tune in to the knee pits, okay? And so from here, if you want to reach around and feel your knee pit tendons, you can. I kind of know where they are already, so I'm going to go ahead and externally rotate my thighs so that I can get those neutral knee pits. Okay, and again, that makes the sole of my foot peel up away from the ground. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna push the ball of my foot into the ground. And then I'm gonna try to relax my toes, okay? Do you feel how much your feet are working here? Your feet are really working to hold you up and to hold your hips stable. This is one of the jobs of our feet. So your feet are doing their jobs. Now, if you can't get the ball of your foot all the way down to the ground, that's fine. Do what you can. You'll have to maybe toggle a little bit back and forth between how much you have your thigh bone rotated and how much you can get the ball of your foot down. I will also say that doing some of the soul food foot care classes on this channel will help to mobilize your foot parts to help you get the ball of your foot down. There's one last element that I'd like for you to consider. And if this is already enough for you and you're just like, my brain is overloaded, stop. Thank you. Press pause. But if you feel like you have a little bit more awareness to spare and you have room in your brain to think about one other thing, I would like for you to think about your kneecaps. So you can use your quadriceps, the muscles on the front of your thighs, to lift your kneecaps up away from the ground, okay? Now, I want you to try to let that go. Try to relax your quadriceps and let your kneecaps fall towards the ground. It might be something that you have to keep checking in with. It's something that I like to do, like patellar popcorn is what I call it, because your kneecap is called your patella. And so I will, if I'm not sure if my kneecaps are released towards the ground, I'll pop them up real quick and then drop them down. So that's one last thing that you can do in front of the mirror. Yet another thing to occupy you as you wait patiently in line to get into Trader Joe's. And hopefully you are feeling maybe a little bit weird standing like this, but also hopefully maybe feeling how your body is able to support you in this position and how your muscles are rallying to the cry to support you in this kind of neutral position. So this is a down and dirty, quick look at lower body alignment. I hope it was helpful. I hope that it sparks some curiosity in you. And if it sparks some curiosity or some questions, please feel free to drop those in the comments below, or you can email me at jen@kindbodymovement.com, and it's Jen with one N. So thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into lower body alignment, and hopefully you have a better understanding of how your parts work with one another. And did you know that your arches are connected to your hips? Now you know. Thank you again. I'll see you next time.